On to the next slide. All right, so let's get ready for our webinar. We got a great presentation for y'all today. We have an amazing guest. But first, let's make sure we're level set on how to have the best session we can. So number one, smile, you're being recorded. The recording and the slide deck will be available for you via email. If you registered, you will definitely get the slides and the recording in a follow-up email. If you do not receive that email, please let us know within the next, maybe by early next week. If you haven't received it, we'll make sure you get that information. And also, this is meant to be interactive, so please use the chat or the raise hand function if you need to, if you want to make a comment, you want to ask a question, maybe there's an update you want to share with the network. We'll have time for that at the end of the presentation, but please use that chat function as you see fit. Next up, Lexi, I think we're going to go over the agenda. Yep, I guess right. So right after we go over the agenda, we're going to first talk about the TPM Connections call. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. We're also going to introduce one of our newest staff members, Shannon Courtney. And then, like I said, amazing guest. We are joined by Andrew Meehan out of Relay Advocacy in North Carolina. And again, we'll talk to you a little bit more about that later on. After his presentation, we're going to have an opportunity to have a good discussion. Remember, I said this is meant to be interactive, right? After that, we'll have some foundation updates. We'll hear from Heather Lawrence, another amazing guest who's going to talk to us about the TPM web tool. And then afterwards, like I said, there'll be an opportunity to discuss updates from you all. Any questions? Anybody have anything they want to just get clarity on before we move forward? You know, we'll do a 7-second wait. All right. I don't know, but does anybody, Lexi, do you see Dorian on the call? No? No? All right, cool. I guess we can move on to the next slide. So, the TPM Connections call. This, if you're not familiar, this is what some like to say is TPM therapy, right? Every other month, we get together for about an hour, myself and Dorian Moe, who you see in this picture from the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. And we have an opportunity for the members of the NLN to just come in and have candid conversation about TPM and TPM implementation. We're usually joined by a guest, somebody who's from the and a practitioner from the network. They share some updates about what's going on in their world, or maybe their best practices for a very specific topic. And then afterwards, again, one of the best parts of the NLN is being able to have discussion with your peers about either the presentation or again, just whatever's going on in their world. We feel like this is a great opportunity to make a large network feel even smaller, having the opportunity to meet people that you may otherwise never get a chance to speak to. And also, it's a great precursor to the NLN Summit that's coming in next month, right? So even if you're not able to make it to the summit, this is still a great way to meet other members of the National Learning Network. So if you're interested in being part of that, feel free to email Dorian. You'll see her email address thanks for putting that in the chat, Lexi. You'll be able to email her and she'll give you next step for registering for the next call. But with that, we can move on to the next slide, Lexi. Yes, we do have a new member in our family. Shannon, I'm going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself to the NLN.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so nice to meet you all. My name is Shannon Courtney. I am one of the new associate managers with the TPM team. I'm originally from Southern California, and prior to joining the team, I was working in the international economic development space across the Americas. So super excited to bring it to a more US focused perspective. And so far with the team, I've been, really working to, revitalize the TPM Academy website to really show all the great activities and the people that are involved in the network and helping prepare for new courses like the public policy course and working on the logistics for the NLN Summit. So I'm looking forward to meeting you all and talking to you further.
Well, thank you, Shannon. And I appreciate you teeing up that public policy course. So move on to the next slide, Lexi. So before I introduce Andrew, I want to level set on why we're here today. So today's webinar focuses on the intersection of TPM and public policy. One thing I was raised is to never show up empty-handed, and we're excited that today is the first day our new specialty course is available for you. We'll have more information about that later on in the presentation, but that course is now live and ready for you to enroll. But with that being said, I'd like to welcome our expert for this session, Andrew Meehan, a seasoned public affairs strategist and co-founder of Relay Advocacy. Andrew supports the North Carolina Health Talent Alliance in collaboration with the North Carolina Chamber Foundation and the North Carolina Center on the Workforce for Health, addressing the state's critical healthcare talent shortage. Andrew is a TPM Fellow and TPM Academy faculty member, and one is an essential contributor to the development of the public policy content. Based on his leadership in the TPM NLN, professional experiences, and role on the Public Policy Review Committee, Andrew is well positioned to facilitate this conversation today. As somebody that was here for when Andrew became a fellow, and I was here for watching you become a TPM Academy faculty, I want to say on behalf of the team, we're very thankful for everything you've done for our network. And pass it over to you now, Andrew.
Well, thank you so much. That is quite the glowing introduction, and I very much appreciate it. And I always like doing anything with this TPM community that I'm very proud to be a part of. So thank you for that, and thank you to the U.S. Chamber Foundation for giving me an opportunity to talk today and participate in the development of that public policy course. It was a lot of fun to kind of work and provide input on. So as Mike said, some folks maybe on this call know me. I see a lot of names I don't know, but a few that I do. As kind of a TPM fellow in particular, working with the North Carolina Chamber Foundation, that's a longtime client of mine. But I also do much broader public affairs work for a range of folks. And so sort of that public policy aspect is something that I was really interested to kind of sink my teeth into, and kind of where does that intersect with TPM? And you can go on to the next slide too as well. So I am going to talk a little broadly, I guess, about kind of public policy, but also then narrow the focus a bit to workforce development and TPM. Again, sort of that's been a decent part of my work for kind of my career. Just kind of make a few points about that intersection of public policy making in general. Then we're going to maybe go through a little exercise as mentioned, kind of one of the exercises from the new public policy course, a pretty straightforward one, but we'll just power through all this, and please at any point, like just any questions you think of or comments you want to make, throw them in the chat. I've got the chat open here, so I'm watching it. I may ask a couple of questions for people to throw stuff into the chat, but the goal here is to sort of set that up as to why the public policy course is potentially a good fit or something you may want to do connected to your work. So next slide, let's talk a little bit about why there's this connection between talent pipeline management and public policy. And I would qualify that as the connection between talent pipeline management and good public policy. Because good policy is grounded in data and research. Good policy generally has an aspect of stakeholder engagement behind it, especially if you're trying to get something passed. You're really going to have to involve often, especially as it gets more complicated, as many stakeholders as you can. Good public policy is outcomes focused, which obviously would sound familiar to anybody in talent pipeline management. And the kind of things that we would work on really should be employer-led and have impact on employers in terms of that connection between TPM and public policy. And I would encourage anybody to throw in the chat any other aspects of good public policy making that have a direct connection to TPM. I won't pause, but I would say if you think of something else right now that, hey, what's a connection between those two things? Throw in the chat, and I love to have some ideas. So a couple of key things just in terms of how I look at public policy making that I wanted to throw in right up front, a couple of key takeaways that I think are reflected in the public policy course on the TPM site. Next slide. So two things to remember. Number one, this is something I kind of like to say, that an idea is not a policy. All right, like uh, lots of people have ideas. I've worked with clients with lots of ideas, but and sometimes they even think that's a policy, but it's a long way from becoming a policy. An idea is really the starting point. So think about that as you're entering, and if you're working with employer collaboratives or working with stakeholders, do they have an idea, or do they are they approaching a policy yet? And I like that in the chat that, considering the entire system, I like that. That's a good connection with TPM. Second thing to remember, because we'll get a little bit into, especially as TPM experts and as we're getting into the exercise, a good policy development generally involves multiple people, a coalition. And one thing I always like to think about when it comes to managing a coalition is that everyone in that coalition has to win. A long time ago, I don't know where I read this. I remember somebody, it was like a former diplomat, saying that people sometimes think diplomacy is a competition, and the point being that no, good diplomacy, the person figures out how everybody gets to win. And so when you're making policy, there's a lot of work, or any kind of coalition, trying to figure out how is everybody going to win. And I think the TPM public policy course kind of reflects a couple of, these two things that are on the screen, and even much broader concepts. But these are two things I like to think about, excuse me. And again, obviously, keep throwing comments in the chat, or if you have questions, throw them in there, and I'll go in any direction. The good thing about the quarterly meeting is it's supposed to be interactive, so we'll have discussion later as well. Let's go on to the next slide. Let's start with this kind of this first concept, right? An idea is not a policy. Well, so like, what are some ideas? Next slide. We have ideas that, well, let's see, let's just go ahead and advance it. There we go. Hey, we need to expand eligibility for an apprenticeship, right? That's a good idea, but like, we're a long way from a policy for that. Another one would be, we need to reduce wait lists for a certification exam. We were talking about this at a North Carolina academy that we did with community college folks. There was a certification exam in healthcare. There was a backlog. Hey, we need to reduce that backlog. We need to attack that wait list. Again, it's an idea, but it's not a policy yet, right? Let's get outside this kind of workforce thing. Hey, we need to expand mental health coverage for children. Great idea. Now what? So we have an idea. What's a policy? And just one more to throw it out there. Hey, the state needs better renewable energy standards. That's a big one. That's one I worked on a long time ago, that involved about 100 stakeholders. But somewhere it starts with an idea, and the question is kind of, how do you turn these ideas into a public policy? And that's really what partially what the TPM course is going to be all about. Questions or thoughts on any of those initial kind of ideas and concepts? Anybody can come off mute and talk, or throw it in the chat if they want. Otherwise, we're going to go into a bit of an exercise for the group. All right, so let's think about that first idea, right? Actually, what is the next slide? Okay, good. So how do we turn these ideas into policy? And you can go all four on this slide. We have to think about what existing policies would your idea impact, right? You have to inventory some things. Do you need to create something new? If I need to expand apprenticeships, am I going to need to create something new, What is it impacting? Who needs to participate and support what you're doing? Who is that policy going to touch? What is it going to impact on their end? You need to start thinking about that on the front end. And again, look at this from the standpoint of an employer collaborative. You're trying to solve for your workforce problem. They may be raising ideas. Some of those ideas start to get into, well, what policymakers may need to do something about this, right? Who needs to participate in that? What other information do you need to gather? Everything about TPM is gathering information, researching data, right? So how do you take the ideas that were on the previous slide? How do you turn them into a nice kind of policy making process? How am I going to strengthen my whole TPM process potentially through public policy? These are some initial questions you have to be thinking about. So think about that first one, like how are we inventorying, right? And that now we'll get into the first exercise. Next slide. So correct me if I'm wrong, anybody from the chamber team. I think this exercise was emailed out to folks, so you can look at it here on the screen. Lexi just dropped it in the chat. And I would like everyone to take like, we had to split it into two screens, right? So there's going to be a little grid after this, or look at it. Everybody take like 20 seconds and just read this real quick. Kind of what are we doing? And then I'll go through it. That's why it's just 20 seconds, but let's just take a minute, or not a minute, 20 seconds. All right. So you can see that this is to help you identify workforce policies and focus on those that are most relevant to your TPM process. So let's start with this idea, right? Get this idea in your head. Maybe this resonates with some of you of we need to, which one am I starting with? Expand eligibility for some apprenticeships, whatever that sector you might be working in. Let's go to the next slide. So I would like everybody to take, I don't know, a minute, which isn't that long, but think about some policies. If that's what you're trying to do, let's say you're trying to expand apprenticeships within a particular critical workforce. Think about what policies that might touch in your area and agencies. Don't worry too much about the priority at this point, but you can. And the answers to this right now can be very specific. If you can think of something extremely specific that's to the nature of apprenticeships and policy in your state, or think of it like really broadly as a category of workforce policy. So everybody write down, whether that's mentally or literally, a couple of things here, and then throw them in the chat. I would hope to see lots of answers from all the experts on here. We're going to go 20 more seconds because people have thought about it, and then I'm going to start calling on people. Because I have plenty of answers. I lost my slides. All right, so if you want to do something about apprenticeships in your state, you have an apprenticeship, you want to expand it, give me a particular public policy that exists that you have to think about, that you have to inventory. Cindy says work-based learning for adults, work-based learning for youth. Who governs that, Cindy? What agency manages that, or agencies? Department of Labor, right? So you're thinking about, okay, I have a specific policy. Now I have the department. They might be a high priority. So Carly, maybe come off mute. You have a Michigan Works, you have a Michigan Works system. They're great partners. What makes them great partners?
Well, speaking for West Michigan Works, which is where I'm located, they have regional locations all over the state. Our organizations just work collaboratively on a number of projects. And so when it comes to workforce development and even, needing more voices or eyes from like specific industry sectors, they have sector strategy groups that we can benefit from as well. And then, of course, they are the workforce development agent arm of Michigan. So very connected to all those policies and things and the experts in it.
That's awesome. Thank you. So you've right there come up with a policy area, you have an agency, and you have a rationale for maybe why they'd be a high priority to work with. So that's good. Mary Ann, maybe expand a little bit on your answers.
I actually think, almost every department, agency could be part of this, but our Office of Economic Opportunity is one in the Agency of Human Services. Then we also have Department of Labor that does a lot with apprenticeships, but they also work with, certain adult populations. And then the Agency of Education, which, works with young people who might qualify for this.
That's great. So how hard would it be? And I see a lot of good answers in the chat. And I think they get at, okay, well, we start to identify where the different policies might sit, right? Like, so this exercise to me, in addition to some of these answers identifying potential coalition members, you're identifying categories of policy. What also, I think this exercise, as you get into it and use it, you can start to identify actual specific things that have to be changed, right? And I think that's a really important point. I wouldn't ask, there's a reason I kind of asked that question to think broadly, because we're probably not going to sit on this call and think about, hey, I need to change General Statute 165.7, right? But if you're doing an exercise like that, you may want to dive into that, like, and kind of at least generate some basic understanding, because the agency folks are going to start talking about that. Like, okay, yep, I want to help you. I need to change this. It's going to require the legislature, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a inventory and an exercise to think, to me, both broadly and narrowly. And I appreciate all the like state workforce boards, et cetera. You're doing, we get a lot of agency identification here. Thinking about then, okay, how do we dive into the policies? And that may require some collaboration with those folks. So let's go to the next slide and do this one more time. And think about something, are there answers on this? Hey, we need to reduce the wait list for a certification exam. And what are some areas of policy or partners on something like this? And think broadly again. I kind of have my head in healthcare. It could mean trades. It could mean different things. what other areas of policy or agency partners might you need to solve a problem like this? And I think this is a range of answers that's different in some ways from the last one.
Instead of
And
just
again,
popping in the chat.
it and come off mute. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I was saying, instead of popping in the chat just now, I'll just unmute. Actually, I think I saw Laura Price from MMA on here. We are actively partnering together as our two organizations leading TPM for our manufacturing sector here in West Michigan. So being a statewide industry association, it's invaluable to have them at the table and part of it.
That's great. Who might control a certification exam? In healthcare, for example.
Andrew, I'm not sure about healthcare, but I know in my industry here, it's the credentialing organization. The organization that provides the credentials would control those certifications and the certification, test.
And I'll ask you, what might contribute to a backlog if you're having a wait list for a certification exam? Not to say you are, but let's tease it out.
Yeah, so there can be a lot of different factors. There can be, there's not enough proctors to administer the exam. There's not enough staff. There's not enough space to give the exam. There's not enough time. So I think that's something, in my case anyway, I would go directly to that credentialing organization and find out, okay, what do we need to do to make this happen better?
I think that's a great answer, right? And I think I'm seeing kind of things getting put in as well. And some of the things you mentioned are funding, right? So when I'm thinking about policy and how do we need to use it to solve certain challenges that we're identifying through TPM, it could be we need funding for something which requires the legislature, which requires maybe an agency. Why isn't there enough funding? What are some of the things there? And so obviously there's a credentialing organization sometimes. There may be policies that are limiting that credentialing organization from spending the money they need. And so the starting point of, okay, well, let's at least try to get our arms around this in some way and inventory what's happening is sort of the core of this kind of exam, or excuse me, exercise. I see the word exam on the screen. So I think, thinking broadly and then narrowing down can help you identify the right agencies, the right partners, what's the priority, what's the timeline. So these are the kind of things within the public policy course. This is just one, right? This is one little snippet of it. And for many of you, I think, and I've done this pretty long time, right? Like that, it's like, okay, well, obviously you do this kind of thing. But what I like is that this course is kind of put together a set of steps that lets you sort of organize all that and think through and get ideas and also identify things you've missed. So I appreciate everybody kind of participating. And I'm looking at Jamie, are there potentially policies they may be hindering or limiting faculty, right? The availability of faculty. You can start to dive straight into, I think, particularly for something like this, man, there may be a specific agency policy that is really hurting this thing, that's going to require maybe multiple people. Okay, well, you can't change it that way because it's going to hurt me over here. You can't change it that way because it's going to hurt me over here, right? Real example, if you take a job over state lines, you need your former employer to demonstrate you have worked in the industry, right? What's the policy around that? Who sets that policy? That's that's part of the exercise. All right, great. That was fun. All right, I could probably do that all day, but I'm limited on my time, and I wanted to just sort of demonstrate this. And a couple of points that I wanted to make, sort of wrap up, and then we can have whatever open discussion, questions people want to talk about a specific example, however they want to do it. If you want to talk about a public policy intersection with your work that you're dealing with right now, that's sort of the open nature of these quarterly calls as well, is get input from your peers. But go on to the next slide and I'll kind of wrap up my comments and go back to my takeaway number 2. All of that was takeaway, number 1, I guess, in terms of how do you turn an idea into a policy. An idea is not a policy. I just want to make a couple of points about like this idea of everyone has to win. I think that's the most challenging part of affecting policy in some way, especially if it's broad ranging. You've got to pull together, some kind of a coalition. And the idea that nobody participates in a coalition or participates in a policy-making process out of the goodness of their heart, generally speaking. They're doing it on behalf of their organization. They're doing it to protect their own interests. And I think one of the biggest challenges, and where coalitions often kind of don't work, is whoever's coordinating it only has their own interest in mind, which is hard. That's what you're incentivized to do. But when it comes to, especially the more complicated a policy gets, trying to keep everyone's interest in mind and trying to make it where everybody wins. And as a kind of last question, and this should be a pretty easy one, but again, come off mute, throw it in the chat. When I say everybody has to win, like thinking about a coalition that's all like nitpicking a policy or helping you create something to solve some of these challenges that we've talked about. Within that coalition, different organization, what constitutes a win? What types of things constitute a win for coalition members? And think of it broadly. If they're participating in your effort, what do they get out of it? What's a win for them?
I think the first small win, especially for our organization, is having the data really like shock them into action, whatever that means, right? Like just really embrace that data and start asking okay, so what's next? How do we fix that, right? Seeing that problem as a real issue.
That's good. They learn something, they get data out of it, they get insights out of it. Jackie says that it has to solve a problem for them. We might also, they want to be involved to protect themselves from getting hurt in some way. Ensuring that whatever you're doing isn't going to harm them is a sort of win. Any last? I have one more to add. Actually, 2 more. So even thinking more broadly, people may participate for visibility, branding, relationship building. So there's direct wins, there's indirect wins, but everybody has to get something out of a coalition effort, right? So always be thinking about each party achieves return of some sort that helps them achieve their respective goals, right? ROI, return, they get funding out of it. They get something out of it directly or indirectly, right? So I just wanted to spend just a brief amount of time on that, just as something that I consider to be important in the public policy space. If you're going to take these ideas, inventory them, identify things that need to be changed, you got to pull a coalition together. You got to think about how everybody's going to win. So with that, we have just a few minutes left in sort of my time, or however long people want to go. That sort of ends of my presentation. I appreciate everybody kind of participating. What I would just do is throw it open. If anybody has comments or questions directly about the course that maybe somebody from the U Chamber Foundation can answer, anything, unmute, throw it in the chat, whatever you want. Talk about your own situation. Mary Ann, I see your hand raised.
Hey, Andrew. Thank you for your presentation. I have a real scenario that I'm working on that's a public policy issue. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. I can tell you later, but we're trying to get our Department of Labor in with our Board of Nursing to register our nursing apprenticeship, which we've been doing for, some years, almost 3 years now, but nobody registered it until now, and people are really interested. So I've been trying to plant some seeds with the Board of Nursing, like, here's one reason that we should do this. Here's, how it could happen. Here's some clarification on the language of like getting paid for clinical time that doesn't, like it clarifies that you're not actually getting paid for your clinical time, but you're getting paid for release time. And this is under the Department of Labor, and this is, so they're a really hard group. Like I've been there many times, and they're very protective of the ivory tower, like we're doing these things in higher education. And I think that they see apprenticeship, the word, and it means something different to them. So I'm trying to think about how to approach it in a way that like we understand that kind of thing.
And who's the we?
The Department of Labor and us. So we're going to go into it together. And, the Department of Labor is like, oh yeah, we register apprenticeships all the time, but they're never requiring a higher education degree and a professional license. So this is just like a step further. I don't know. And I'm just curious if you had any tips on.
And how are you demonstrating demand for it? Like who has the demand for the change you're trying to make? Is this employers? Is it the learners?
So I would say it's employers, because employers are now funding their education. So actually, now that you say that, I should bring an employer with me.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so part of inventorying, right? Like, although that's not really this part of the inventory we were talking about in terms of inventorying the policies and everything. But it, hey, this is the policy, these are the agencies that affect it. Well, the next layer is, well, what's going to influence those agencies, right? Like, you can come up with all the ideas in the world. You can put the greatest ideas in the world in front of them. There's still an aspect of, okay, well, what's going to motivate me to do this thing? They're very protective for a reason, right? Like,
yeah.
So just thinking about the next layer of inventorying your partners and what are they going to get out of it is sort of my general thought on that.
Yeah. We had to like kind of go through the, I guess what I would say the standards, and try to draw some parallels between what's being taught in the class and the standards that the Board of Nursing requires. That was our first step.
And if there's something you've drawn data-wise out of a TPM effort that demonstrates, and maybe you've done this already, this might have been inherent in what you were saying, but that demonstrates the need as well. So, hey, we're demonstrating a demand from these employers. Our TPM data, which is showing a leak in the pipeline here or showing a gap in the pipeline there, demonstrates the need. Putting all those things together and not just try to have this. Now we're starting to get into like advocacy stuff, but multiple messengers is always sort of the way I think of these things.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else have an example they wanted to throw out or a question, or again, hopefully, as Jamie's putting in the course too, like, or putting in the chat, everybody should try the course and see what out of it.
Yes.
Nobody else has a question. I actually have a question for you, Andrew.
Go ahead.
I do want to make sure the audience has an opportunity to ask anything, so I'm gonna give it a few seconds. And so in the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the similarity between public policy and TPM. You talked about stakeholder engagement, right? And it made me think about how when you implement the TPM, you got to talk to your employees, you got to communicate with your training providers, you got to communicate with just about anybody that's in the sandbox in your community, right? Similar to how you, I'm sure in your career, you've had to talk to a number of people and make sure you ask, like, hey, what works for you? What works for you? And try to make sure everybody plays nice together. So, in your experience in that, what would you say to anybody that's embarking on their TPM journey, or maybe they're already in it and they want to get better at communicating with everybody that's in that
Mhm.
sample?
From a like a public policy standpoint, or just sort of in general as like a related to doing the TPM piece of it in terms of like,
I would say related to the TPM piece of it
yeah.
within that context.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at that. I think that one thing that, and I don't know if this answers your question, but I'm going to give it a shot. I think your question was pretty broad as well, so there's probably a lot of different good answers. I think that when you're working in a kind of TPM context or any coalition context, but thinking about your collaborative management, you obviously maybe think from meeting to meeting in terms of like, okay, well, I'm organizing this. We have a meeting. It has a purpose to do this and this and this. There's a lot that you can do in between meetings individually with people to try to like synthesize their thoughts um, in between meetings. So you're already going in kind of with an idea of what are the key people probably going to say? What are they going to raise? And so there's this work that happens in between that one is kind of necessary, but two helps you sort of build out that relationship piece to some degree. So don't just think meeting to meeting to meeting. Think about the relationships that you're building in between. And again, that's something maybe a lot of people on this go, duh. But I think that's particularly important in the TPM concept where you're trying to kind of do this process and you don't want to get overly bogged down in step 1, 2, 3 and ignore the stuff that has to happen in between. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that
No,
was the first thing that kind of came to my mind.
no, it does, and I appreciate the answer. And I do apologize. The question was a little bit broad.
No, that's
But
good. I like broad questions.
encompass that everybody here has different experiences, but just overall, we all need to communicate, right? And I think it was a great point that, like, yes, you do have these milestones that you're going to meet, these strategies or whatever, but in between, what can you do to transition between them? Um, I want to give it another couple minutes, but I want to make sure that we have time for updates. So, any other questions, comments, observations before we transition to pass it over to Jamie?
Yeah, I'll just say, and as by way of transition, I appreciate everybody getting on, and I know that again, these kind of quarterly meetings. This one was maybe a lot of presentation, but for those of you who haven't been to the quarterly meetings, it's been a bit for me even. It's a lot of times very interactive and like, hey, you may spend 20 minutes. Marianne may throw out that example, and Marianne gets to talk about it. Everybody gets everybody's input, right? So it's a great place to throw out ideas in a safe space and get collaboration from your peers. And I hope everybody will think about checking out that public policy course, seeing what you think of it. Give Jamie your opinion. Um, Michael, you could throw my contact info. I don't know if you'll email the slides. I had a slide with my contact info. I'm happy to talk through any particular challenge people are having. So thanks again for the opportunity to chat. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, thank you. And this is my, silent round of applause for everybody. And yes, you all will get Andrew's contact information along with the slides and the recording. And again, I want to echo, well, just repeat what you were saying. Thank you. I think that one of the best parts of the NLN is being able to speak with somebody, reach out to them and talk to them. So again, if you're in the audience and you want to meet with Andrew, feel free to reach out to him. Or if you would like for us to make that connection, we'd be more than happy to do that. But again, Andrew, thank you for your time and thank you for your expertise. But with that, Jamie, can I pass it over to you?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And I echo your gratitude for Andrew and the encouragement to check out the new public policy course. And please let us know what you think of it. We get a lot of fantastic feedback that we're then able to incorporate into future iterations of the course. But the way that we really tried to break down this course is this first exercise that you're presented with is followed by 4 additional exercises over the course that just build on one another in terms of additional questions to consider, different folks that you might need to reach out to, and how these connection points to your TPM strategies can really enhance your work and your impact in your communities. So we're really excited to get your thoughts on it. And by all means, like, please take advantage of it, rip it apart, tell us what works, what doesn't work for you, and we'll continue to try to make that resource better and better. But at the end of the course, I really like we broke down basically all of the questions to consider as you're trying to think about how TPM can inform or align with public policy. So excited to get y'all's thoughts about it. If you just want to pop up the slide deck, please. Just a couple of announcements from our end in terms of what's kind of coming up. We do have our next blended learning cohort that will kick off on October 23rd. So we're really excited. One of our faculty members is on today's call. So thanks so much, Deb Broberg, for your partnership and leadership in overseeing that collaborative. Looking forward to bringing in a new network of partners. So if any of you all have people that you would encourage or think could benefit from participating in the live learning cohorts, in which they'll get to meet with Deb and other TPM Academy faculty members, get to meet experts from across the network, we would love to have your colleague and community partners involved in this upcoming cohort. The next thing is, as we said, the public policy course is now open as of today. So we would love for you all to enroll. And again, if you have any feedback, we would welcome it. You can earn a specialty badge in public policy if you take the course and complete the summative assessment, but very eager to hear more folks' feedback and hopefully get to continue to have these conversations. We've heard so many examples, and we try to incorporate a lot of those examples into the course of what does this look like in various TPM communities. So some of Marianne's stories are, incorporated into the course to demonstrate how she's really lifted up her employer collaborative and healthcare to connect with various public policy opportunities in the state of Vermont. So thank you to Marianne and to all those on the call who contributed case studies and stories that we could include to just try to bring to life what this can look like. And then finally, we've got our last quarterly webinar of the year on November 5th. If you want to take a quick snapshot of that QR code to register for our November 5th session, in which we can have more conversations like this. And on our next slide, of course, we would be remiss if we did not mention the fact that the annual summit is coming up just about a month from now. So we have our pre-conference programming for our leadership team. If you are a TPM faculty member or fellow, we would certainly encourage and ask that you think about joining us a day early to participate in some specialty programming for our leadership group, followed by a reception. And then on the 30th, things will kick off around 11 o'clock. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers and interactive sessions. This is a summit for the doers. So we always brag upon our attendees for the summit, and this year will be no exception. Registration is looking really healthy. I believe our room block is getting closer and closer to full. So if you have not yet booked your hotel room, would highly encourage you to do so. We do still have a couple of stipends, travel stipends available for those who want to come to the summit. So if you fill out that annual survey, if you take a look at the QR code down at the bottom, and you fill out the annual survey, you can get a $250 travel stipend to participate in the summit. And then, as mentioned, we do have a room block at a decent rate. I believe it's around $330 a night. But of course, you're welcome to look at other options as well. But we are getting close to full on that room block. So if you have not booked your hotel, please do so. But we'll very much look forward to welcoming you all for a fantastic jam-packed agenda, finishing up with our annual Hall of Fame awards. So we're super excited to get to recognize some members of our network and their partners and their contributions to the TPM network. So with that, I'm going to transition to our colleague from Southern Illinois University. You all have known these folks for quite some time. Heather Lawrence is on today's call, as well as Olivia Miller. We do have a pretty big announcement in that we have made the decision to sunset the TPM web tool, mostly as a reaction to feedback that we've had from the network in terms of their use of many other tools. The world of digital transformation, has evolved so much since we first launched the TPM Academy, the TPM curriculum, and the TPM web tool. So times are changing, they're changing quickly, and we want to make sure that you all are leveraging the tools that are most helpful to you. So Heather is here to talk with us through what that process is going to look like. We wanted to give folks a healthy runway, and so it will not be set for another 9 months, and we do have kind of a sunsetting plan in place. So with that, I will hand things over to Heather to talk through.
Thank you, Jamie. So yes, so if we can go ahead and move to that next slide. So the TPM web tool is set to sunset as of May 30th, 2026. So we do have a little while. Users are encouraged to begin transitioning away from the tool ahead of this date. So new access to the TPM web tool will be limited. We have new resources and things like that are coming out that are going to be assisting with this effort. This change is part of an ongoing effort to streamline and modernize TPM resources. And then the TPM web tool database will be securely archived, and the website will be shut down. So once it sunsets as of May 30th, the website will no longer be able to be accessed, but the archive database will be maintained by the Foundation for Historical and Compliance purposes. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So a transition guide and tutorial videos have been created, and they are guides on how to export your data from the system. So some of the features in there have the actual export features. Others, I go through instructions on how you'll have to maybe print each page of the section. But knowing that the tool is going to sunset as of next year, I would start gathering your information out of the system now. The TPM Academy is where the FAQ and the transition materials are going to be housed. So you can access those there. And then starting January 2026, monthly reminders of the TPM web tool sunset will be sent out. So we're not just going to do one announcement. We're going to continue to remind you so that you can get your important information out of the system. Yep. And then for questions, you can reach out to the TPM support at uschamber.org. Again, those resources are going to be made available for you and can be accessed in the TPM Academy webpage. We are going to put up a banner on the website here pretty soon to remind new users that are coming to create a new account that we are going to sunset the tool as of next May. And then again, for any questions, you can always reach out to that support email address. And I believe, let's go ahead and transition. Yep. So, so what are the next steps? Because we want to work together for a smooth transition. We know this is a big change. We encourage feedback from users to ensure all concerns are addressed. If you are using another tool you think would benefit the network, please share and let them know about it. If you run into any issues extracting your data, again, you can reach out to that that email address, the TPM support at uschamber.org, and then you can stay engaged through the TPM Academy updates and communications. So this is just a quick overview about the tool sunsetting, but we wanted to make sure that you knew that there will be tools available.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate my gratitude to the SIU team who have been phenomenal partners to us these past 11 years. We were so grateful. Olivia has been with us for a very, very long time, and Heather has been a fantastic asset to the team. So again, a huge thank you, and we'll continue to keep you all updated. But please know that we're here with you throughout this transition, and we'll be putting together plenty of resources and ideas for how you can move forward in the case that you have been an active user of the TPM web tool. But huge thanks to Heather and to Olivia. So with that, I'll throw things back over to Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And to everybody, we appreciate you joining us today. Again, we will send all of this out in an email. If you do not get the email by the middle of next week, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to get that to you. But looking forward, looking ahead, I should say. Um, I want to say we did say we would have some opportunity to share updates, but if you would like to share something with the network or maybe something with the Chamber Foundation team directly, feel free to reach out to us. And we'll be happy to get that message out to you. But also remember earlier we talked about the TPM Connections call. Email Dorian Moe. That email is going to be in the slide deck if you want to be part of that next conversation. And lastly, if you have not already, register for the NLN Summit. We cannot wait to see you next month. With that, thank you again and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.